These gameplay showcases have been extremely high quality, so let's see what CA's got cooking with this one for the Dowie.
Inventive, quirky, Doom.
Anything and everything goes in the book.
Malakai's kind of
okay. They did do some reworks to the Great Book of Grudges. This I know, and it feels a bit more impactful. I think most people are kind of happy with this. I've never played dwarves, so now might be the time to.
Ranged king of a character. He buffs artillery lines and he's really good at striking from a distance.
Let's sit back, have a tea and a biscuit, and watch the fireworks.
Gontrick and Felix are with him. That makes sense. He does appear in the novels as well, yeah.
Caught between two worlds, the Slayer and Glorious Death, and the engineer who loves to tinker, Malakai Makaisson is truly a force to be reckoned with.
Dang. I've heard that apparently with this airship, you don't really have to, like, give it command orders, or attack orders, I should say. And you can just fly it around on top of the battlefield and it automatically fires off, which helps reduce the micro a lot. Really thankful for that.
Malakai starts in control of Karakadrak in the Giant Home Mountains, with Norskans to the west and east, Rats and Kislev to the south, and a whole host of demons to the north. There's no better testing ground for a genius engineer with a death wish. But that's enough about me. There are munitions to enhance and airships to fly. Many, many, many grudges to settle, and a whole buffet of exciting...
Okay, Malakai's adventures, this is obviously his unique thing going on. Number Mountain holds him and devastated by a vicious dragon, leaving countless dwarves dead and homeless. I wonder what this is a reference to. Could that dragon's name be Smog? This already seems like a pretty fun mechanic though. We'll have to hear more details later on in the video, but having it be like a journey and adventure of his own, because, you know, he's in the Gotrek and Felix novels, that makes a lot of sense.
Adventures to sink our teeth into. We might even meet a Glorious Death, but for now let's deal with Dungrut and learn more about Malakai.
Malakai is a really interesting character. He mixes being a slayer and being an engineer into a kooky little box.
Usually they use
favorite,
melee,
but he wasn't featured in that many Games Workshop books.
His playstyle is all around building a lot of artillery and missile units and pushing them to their limits.
Malakai is kind of this ranged king of a character. He buffs artillery lines and he's really good at striking from a distance.
Fast for a dwarf. I'm pretty sure all the Slayer units have this. But yeah, it's a little bit strange of a playstyle for a Slayer that you would think, you know, would go into the front lines because they want an honorable death. But no, Malakai, he's more of the stay with your missile infantry and buff them up instead. I guess that kind of works out because Slayers are great, but they have 0 armor, so maybe having them stay back could be a useful playstyle for them. Or rather, a more unique playstyle than the usual Slayers where they just kind of ran in and died inevitably at the end of a battle, because those guys just never broke. It was so annoying just trying to find that one Slayer unit that was still alive whenever you're fighting the dwarves.
Where he kind of falls down is in close range melee combat, where he can't really hold his own.
You might say corner camping is a cowardly move, but I'm playing the waiting game. My cannons and gyrocopters...
Pretty sure when it comes to dwarves, corner camping is just the play. You're not very fast, so you want the enemy units to come to you, and that's why you have your artillery and your flying units.
...have done some nice work, aided by Malakai's buffs. Gotrek and Felix are supporting the front line, and the Thunderers are picking off any upstarts getting too close. It's time for the main event. Let loose the spirit of Grungni.
Wow. Beautiful.
I can only give it basic orders and it doesn't stick around for long, not yet. But that's fine by me. Let's sit back, have a tea and a biscuit, and watch the fireworks.
Oh, okay. So it's more of like a summoned unit? Is that what I'm seeing here? Is it still possible to build this thing, or what? Maybe it's a special army ability.
tactical advantages abound, with the spirit of Grungni forever flying above us. Design insight shortly, but first, let's nose around. Ooh, look at that, we've got building options. Recruitment.
Oh, wait. This is kind of like a horde army mechanic. Wait, does that mean Malakai's a horde army? But, I mean, he does have a starting city. Maybe it's a mixture of both, kind of?
Provides us with a limited number of units that we can recruit from anywhere on the campaign map. This also relates to any of our lords in the Spirit of Grungni's radius. Compartments aid in things like campaign movement, production, recruitment slots, unit experience, army upkeep, and increasing the time the Spirit of Grungni sticks around in battle. The Spirit of Grungni is tied to Malakai and gives him an immense advantage on the campaign map as well as in combat. Used at the right moment, and the Spirit can mean the difference between victory or defeat.
So the Spirit of Grungni is kind of this call-in power that we've never really had in Total War Warhammer before.
The Spirit of Grungni forgoes the weakness of the Thunder Barge, which is getting into position. The Spirit can drop in at any place and unleash hell.
Okay, no, the Thunder Barge is a thing that you can build, but the Spirit of Grungni is a specific to Malakai thing, which is an army ability where you can call down wherever on the battlefield, which seems pretty OP, depending on the limitations that you have on it. And then I guess it makes sense that it kind of provides quote-unquote air support to any like lords surrounding your legendary lord so that they can like global recruit from it. Basically a moving city, but probably with a limited functionality as opposed to an actual city.
Malakai will speak to the dwarf players that are looking for something a little bit new. A lot of our existing characters don't have that same pushing their boundaries and inventiveness that comes with him. Also, these adventures are really thematic.
To fulfill the fantasy of a slayer, Malakai can set out on epic adventures which unlock in turn 5. But the constant pull of machinery is the lifeblood of any true Dowie, and Malakai has perfectly married these two vital parts of himself. To that end, adventures are paired with a type of unit. These units are highly recommended to use during the related adventure because when the axes are drawn, they'll give us a significant tactical advantage. We can use the higher adventure units mechanic to recruit a limited number of these units, even if we haven't unlocked them via the buildings tree. Every adventure has 6 independent objectives to complete, each upgrading the associated unit differently, but only 3 objectives are required to unlock the legendary battle. The more we complete, the stronger our unit becomes.
Malakai's campaign really plays into the adventures he had with Gotrek and Felix. You'll be going around the world, collecting technologies and fighting these awesome battles.
And as part of that, we incentivize you to upgrade some units which will be pretty pivotal in the success in taking on that beast. Malakai is different from other Slayers. Most of them are desperate to fulfill their oath. He's got some things to tinker with before that.
As I've completed all 6 objectives, ever the overachiever, the legendary battle is unlocked. Before we go face our potential death, let's have a wee peek at the changes to the Dowie tech tree. I love trees, and now we've got 2 distinctive ones, guilds and clans. As we've been playing more aggressively, I've gone full throttle into the clans tree to give us every edge when the grudges start grudging. Check out the blog to see the full changes to the dwarf factions, or stick around and watch me shoot this cannon.
I do like how thematic it is, and like, who cares about the balance? As long as it's a really fun mechanic when you're playing that faction, then I think it's a good thing for the game overall. On one hand, you could maybe see that as like kind of forcing you into using a particular strategy, but for me, I just love playing thematic armies with whatever faction they're using. And I'm assuming that maybe certain weapons are paired with certain missions because they were used like that within the novels. I still have yet to read any of the Gotrek and Felix books, but I'm just gonna throw that out there that maybe that's the reasoning behind it. Either that, or it's just the fact that those weapons would be really, really good to have, considering the conditions of the legendary battle that you're gonna fight.
Oh, silly elves, you can't beat my turtle formation. The cavalry sneakily trying to get to our cannons. Thankfully, we have a shield of miners. No,
those
you're not
blasting charges
supposed
are
to go
devastating.
behind the miners. I'm going to pretend that's not happening and summon the spirit of Grungni.
That solves everything. Just pretend it's not happening.
Yep, I've really dropped the ball here. These horses aren't going down. Maybe the thunderers can help. It could be worse. At least the dragons aren't here yet. There they are. Yeah, there they are.
Well. I guess it's time for an honorable death.
You know what? This is fine. We've still got one cannon. We only need one. I hope.
Oh boy.
Nothing can stop us!
Except the dragons. Getting Felix.
The timing.
Right, well,
Nice.
that could have gone worse, but with the dragons dealt with, we're on the cusp of victory. One adventure down.
Do not shame your ancestors!
A close victory means more adventures to fulfill my oath. Jamek Grimbrow, our demon slayer lord, has already started around her fisticuffs with the Chaos Dwarf, so I suppose I'll start working on the Dreadquake Destruction adventure. And, as I started a new adventure, that associated unit becomes open to me through the Higher Adventures unit tab.
Malakai's fantasy is one of really two halves. He's a slayer, but he's also this eccentric genius engineer. So for players who want to tinker with
badass.
all
Good
various
shot.
types of dwarf technology whilst also adhering to the strict rules of the Slayer Oath, this is your guy.
I haven't mentioned it up till now, but our more perceptive viewers would have noticed the different numbers over the heads of characters and settlements. No, we're not ranking them, though Malakai's an obvious 10. This is the update to the Grudge system. We wanted the Grudge system to play a bigger part in Dwarf campaigns and have a larger impact.
My understanding of the grudge system before this was that it wasn't very impactful. Even if you didn't fulfill those grudges, you didn't really suffer all that much. And when you did fulfill those grudge packs, it didn't reward you in any meaningful way either, so it was just kind of there. Hopefully with whatever change they made, it's become a lot more thematic, and of course, just a lot more fun.
To achieve this, grudges now work over a cycle of 10 turns called the Age of Reckoning. The number looming menacingly over a character's head indicates how many grudges they've incurred. Throughout the 10-turn cycle, we want to build the highest number possible. The more grudges settled, the better our potential rewards in both campaign buffs and access to Grudge Settler units will be. Grudges can be incurred by different means. Someone occupying a dwarven settlement that isn't a dwarf. Trespassing. Raiding. Attacking. Looking at me funny. Asking annoying questions. Not saying thank you when I hold the door open for you last Thursday, Andrew. And factions alliances. Anything and everything goes in the book. Beep.
Maybe this is somewhat similar to like the Golden Age mechanic in Civ 6. Well, it's not exactly the same, but the general gist of it makes sense in my head. If you're doing extremely well, then you get like meaningful buffs, but it also gives you like a 10-turn timer, and you're gonna have to plan out your campaign movement around that, depending on what you need, or to at the very least not suffer from the penalties.
Speaking of, the book's had a small makeover. It now has tabs. Let's flick through them. Legendary Grudges are long-term campaign goals offering powerful rewards.
Okay.
Completing Retake the Realms, for example, gives you a hefty chunk of settled grudges and reopens the Underway, allowing quick and easy passage around the region.
Okay. So you have to complete this mission before you unlock the Underway network, which I think is a reworked mechanic for the dwarves. I don't know if they still have their Underway movement stance. They probably do, but maybe the Underway network is a separate thing that makes it so they can just teleport to a different part of the map.
In the Legendary Lords tab, we can compare our settled grudges against our fellow Dowie, and, if formidable enough, confederate them.
Ah, okay. This was also mentioned. I believe that now you can actually confederate them even if they got wiped out without having to like use a mod or whatever. So I guess that fantasy of like uniting all the dwarves together and having all the legendary lords under your control is a lot more achievable now.
Finally, the Grudge Settlers tab gives us an overview of all the Grudge Settler units and at what grudge level they're unlocked. Once an Age of Reckoning is done, you have the choice to take a 10-turn break from grudging or immediately jump back in, righting wrongs.
We took a look at the grudge mechanic.
Okay, I see. You can delay it by 10 turns, but you'll have to get 20% more settled grudges during the next cycle. I suppose that makes sense, and the decision is pretty pivotal, considering like what you're trying to achieve within the next 10 turns, so you kind of have to always be on the ball and have like a 10-turn plan. You gotta have that CEO mindset of what you're trying to do here. Trying to go to war? I mean, if you're going to war, you might as well enter a new age. But if you're just trying to build up your empire, then getting a 10-turn break could be a nice thing.
To take a 10-turn break from grudging, or immediately jump back in, right and wrongs.
We took a look at the grudge mechanic and thought the flavor was there, but the gameplay was a little stagnant. So we've added some more dynamism to how grudges are distributed, so you can always see who needs a grudging.
Malakai's glorious death eludes him still, but perhaps not for much longer. We've stress-tested our gyrocopters and tweaked them silly. We're now ready to face the Dawizar in a battle that will no doubt be remembered in song. Or at least interpretive dance.
Not the interpretive dance. Oh no.
Time to prove these Hashut-worshipping fiends are no match for a true Dowi's engineering prowess.
And the Chaos
We'll close the
Dwarves,
gap
yeah.
and try to tease them forward with sporadic cannon fire. But the Dawizar are as stubborn as their inventions are ugly, and they hold steadfast for
God.
reinforcements.
Yeah, those guys are not to be
Convoys
messed
arrive,
with.
so we'll head them off with our gyrocopters. You know what, that's enough waiting. Our Doomseekers will lead the charge.
So Doomseekers are kind of like this elite Slayer unit, think aspiring champions, but on the dwarf roster. They have this ability where if you push the button, they just spin around and deal loads and loads of damage. So with their dual chain axes, they're really going to cause some havoc.
Really good for clearing masses of infantry.
Spinning, that's a good trick. One our Dragon Slayer hero unfortunately can't employ against such a massive foe. This unbreakable anti-large melee expert is committed only to a glorious death.
I guess it's a good opponent against the large
Not with
guy.
a Demon Slayer on the prowl.
All that armor.
Demon Slayers are kind of like
are so
chaff
scary.
lender units. And what we mean by that is they're great at taking out large groups of condensed infantry.
Ooh, look out, here comes Garagrim Iron Fist, your legendary hero.
My favourite thing about Garagrim Iron Fist is that his axes are chained to his arms so he doesn't lose them.
An anti-infantry melee specialist, Garagrim's
That's a good
quite
idea,
fast
actually.
for a dwarf.
We demand blood!
The front line's getting a little hot for the Thunderers. We'll pull them back to give them some breathing room.
Thunderers are dwarfs that are trained in the use of firearms. Thunderers have been in the game since Warhammer 1, but now we're introducing a weapon option that allows them to take the Grudge Raker, which is a type of shotgun.
It's a pretty low range, so it's like right before the front lines. It doesn't look like they're doing very good in melee, so as long as you can have a solid front line keeping them alive, then they could potentially do quite a lot of damage. Although it's kind of hard for me to imagine dwarves like flanking around to get good shots. I guess I'll just have to play them to understand their playstyle. Oh, and here it comes.
Away from the bulk of the battle, our gyrocopters and the Spirit make short work of the incoming reinforcements. A good thing too, because we've just unleashed the Slayer Pirates.
These
Slayer
guys.
Pirates were first introduced in Dogs of War and later in Storm of Chaos. They're kind of these cutlass and pistol-wielding badasses that drink rum filled with gunpowder and iron filings, so pretty sus.
These guys look kind of like, I forget their exact name, the Chameleon Skinks, the one with, very low ammunition, the red ones. Actually, I think they're literally called like Red Crested Chameleon Skinks or whatever. But they seem to be the kind of guys who have pretty low ammunition, 6 ammunition, they just fire a few shots and then they charge into melee afterward. Which means they're likely not as good as the dedicated melee units, but serve their purpose. Having missile units is, always a good thing, depending on the kind of enemy that you're facing, especially if you have a large target that you gotta take down. But with this wide range of like slayers who are both melee, anti-infantry, anti-large, and ranged, this means that you could probably just run a very thematic army of just full-on slayers.
We didn't quite manage to catch the train. I don't mean, that's not a pun. And it's wreaking havoc with the Thunderers. Time for the Goblin Hewer.
The Goblin here is
this
a fitting
thing.
construction of death and mayhem that
It only has 2 ammunition, but it has 3k missile strength. Holy cannoli. It is truly a specialist artillery. Yeah. Imagine putting that 3k damage into like a lord that you're fighting against, or whatever gigantic unit that you're fighting. That's a lot of damage, but it does have melee attack. So after you throw those 2 ammunition, you probably just put it into melee like any other Slayer unit. I'm sure a Legendary Lord can actually refill its ammo though. We probably have an ability like that.
fires axes at rapid succession at the enemies. Once the ammunition has all been depleted though, it's also crewed by Slayers, which then run headlong into the battle.
Yeah, there you go.
With the Hewers' help, we've managed to pull the Grim Delvers back. At a shanty from the Long Drong Slayer pirates.
Oh, these are RORs.
And
Okay.
a war cry from the Brotherhood of Grimnir. And the front line is all but secure. Let's unleash the Thunder Barge.
The Thunder Barge is the ultimate expression of Dwarven air power. It's got 2 cannons, it's got loads of gunners on it, it's got 4 bomb bays, and it's also got a giant harpoon that it can fire from the main balloon part.
A giant harpoon?
It's insane, and it's really going to change the face of the Dwarf playstyle.
Oh, that's awesome.
Demon-infused war machines. Foul has shut magic. Pathetic. Look how our corrupted cousins flee before the might of Malakai Makaisson.
Oh, shoot him? Hell yeah.
Alas,
Dang.
our victory falls hollow for the master of innovation.
These little cinematic moments are so good.
A glorious death has escaped Malakai once more, and we can only curse our exceptional talent for this grave injustice. Oh, what's this?
Oh, uh-oh.
Could it be? Was this the last of Malakai Makaisson's adventures? Has our hero met the glorious
come
end he
on.
has so desperately sought? Or will you see just how far his inventions will take him?
Wow.
Thoughts, comments, biscuits? Share them
Gotta
below or
leave
follow
us
our
with a
links to watch this
cliffhanger
now.
like that? That's great. We have some pretty great writing in these gameplay showcases. Really gone above and beyond for them.